Okay, thanks everybody for joining me. Anytime you have a question, feel free to just jump in. So you have there the text. It's Ethics of the Sages, chapter 2, Mishnah 1. As we said last time, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the high priest, he was the one that compiled the Mishnah. He lived around 150 years AD, 150 years after the temple was destroyed. He studied from the students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, we know, was tortured by the Romans who destroyed the second temple in 70 AD. So his students were from the teachers of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the high priest. Now here we have in Pirkei Avot, Mishnah 1, Rabbi Eimer, Rabbi said. So here we don't call him Rabbi Yehuda, Mark. Here we call him Rabbi. Rabbi said, or Rebbe said. We're giving him his nicknames. Anytime you see in the Mishnah or in the Talmud, Rebbe means Rabbi Judah the high priest, even though there's thousands and thousands of rabbis and rebbes out there. But whenever we see ever the word Rebbe or Rabbi, it means one person, Rabbi Judah the priest, or Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. I don't mean a priest like the guy, a Kohen that serves in the temple, but the priest like he was an elevated individual. What did he say? He said, he asked, which is the proper path for a man to choose for himself or for herself? Which is the proper path for a man to choose for him or herself? And the answer is whatever brings beauty to the person that does it and is beautiful to mankind. So what's the answer? Whatever brings beauty to the person and brings beauty to the other people, to my surrounding or to somebody else, then you know we're doing the right thing. So if Mark does something good and it brings beauty to Mark and it does bring beauty to Olsa Mendel, so we know that's the right thing. Make sense so far, Mark? Okay. So there's a lot of commentary on this, on these two lines, but let's continue a little bit more and then we'll come back to this. Let's continue with what Rebbe said. Then he says, be as careful with a minor mitzvah as with a major one, for you do not know the reward for mitzvot. Again, be as careful with a minor mitzvah as with a major one, for you do not know the reward for the mitzvot. So an example, let's say, of a minor mitzvah would be, let's say, put 2 pennies in the pushka. Give $1 to a homeless man. I would say that would, let's say, be a minor mitzvah. So he says, be as careful with such a minor mitzvah as a major one. What would be a major one? Let's say keeping the Shabbat. Let's say not eating a double cheeseburger. Not marrying a non-Jew, right? That would be a major one. So here Rabbi Yehuda is saying, be as careful as a minor one as with a major one. Then he continues, consider the loss incurred when performing a mitzvah against a reward and the gain obtained by committing a sin against the loss it incurs. So consider the loss incurred when performing a mitzvah against its reward would mean, in simple English, if my business, my store is open on Saturday, and I don't want to close it because it's Shabbat. I don't want to close it, because it's my store and I want to make money. The only time I struggled with this when I was a kid, when I was a manager of a thrift store, and most of the money that we made income was on Saturday and Sunday. And as a kid growing up in yeshiva, and they said we have to rest on the Shabbat and we can't work on Saturday, I didn't think that was such a big deal. Just take the day off and enjoy your day off and go to synagogue, or don't even go to synagogue, just hang home. But when I had a retail store and I found that as a manager, 50% of my whole weekly income came on Saturday and the other 50% came on Sunday, and the other 5 days a week, nothing was really happening in my store. So there was a part of me that was, I wouldn't say I was tempted to keep my store open on Saturday, but let me tell you, I was not a happy person. So here Rabbi Yehuda is saying, consider the loss incurred when performing a mitzvah against its reward and the gain obtained by committing a sin against the loss it incurs. So in the long run, it's not going to help us. Again, we'll chew this down a little bit more in just a few minutes. I'm just trying to get to the basic meanings of all this. And then he says, reflect upon three things and you will not come to sin. What are these three things that I will not come to sin? Know what is above you, an eye that sees, or an ear that hears, and that all your deeds are recorded in a book. So know what above you, and then he says these are the three. Know what is above you. So what are the three things that are above me? An eye that sees, an ear that hears, and then all your deeds are recorded in a book. Some people will read this a little bit differently. When it says reflect on the three things and you will not come to sin, what are those three things? One, know what is above you. Two, an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and all that your deeds are recorded in a book. Okay, either way you slice it, those are simply the three things that we have to be mindful of, and I will not come to sin. Again, I'm going to chew this all down, but let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. So when Rabbi Yehuda says at the very beginning, what is the proper path for man to choose for him or herself? And then he says, whatever brings beauty to you and to the other people. I mean, what's really the question? What's really the question? What is the right path to choose? We know the right path to choose is follow the Torah. We already got this at Mount Sinai. That's the path to choose. In the Torah, it states, love thy fellow as thyself, honor thy parents. It's all in there. So what's Rabbi Yehuda really asking when he says, what is the proper path for man to choose? So the commentaries here address this by stating that we should read it like this. Which is the proper path for man? What is the proper path for mankind to choose for himself, to choose for herself? Which means to say that it's not enough to be indoctrinated, to be educated, and things should be thrust upon me or imposed upon me to be a religious Jew. Rather, you should choose for yourself. This should be your choice to make. It's true that there has to be a part of Judaism and a part of religion where we do things because that's what God said. But as adults, the more we choose and say, yes, this is what I want because this is the right thing for me to do. This makes sense. I'm doing this because I feel good with my life. I feel good with my relationship with God, and I'm choosing this path. That's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. That's what Rebbe is saying. What is the right path for mankind? To choose for yourself. Don't just do it because I did it yesterday or I'm doing it because I was a kid and that's what my parents asked me to do. But I'm choosing. I'm doing it. Which is a reason why it says, which is the proper path for man? There's four, in the Hebrew, it says Adam. Adam. There are four levels to describe a human. There are four levels to describe a human. Give me a second here. Just waiting for Sylvia to join in here. Hey, Sylvia, how are you? Welcome back.
Good. Sorry.
Nice to see you back in. Oh, how you doing? I'm just going to mute you, but thanks for coming in. And in the chat is the link for the class. So there are four levels to describe a human being, right? You say you're a nice person, you're a nice human being, you're a nice guy, you're a nice gal. So there's different adjectives we use. In Hebrew as well, we have, I just want to give it to you all four here. We have Enosh, Ish, Gever, and Adam. These are also four levels when the Torah wants to describe and articulate or give adjectives for the human species. Enosh, Ish, Gever, and Adam. Adam, like Adam and Eve, Adam is the highest level of the four levels when we describe the human species. So here, Rebbe right from the outset, right, the bull out of the gate over here. He says, which is the proper path for man? Again, we're talking about the highest level of the human species, the highest level of mankind. What is the highest level of mankind? To choose for him or herself to have a relationship with God. It shouldn't be indoctrinated into us. That is good when we're children, but we should choose it, right? As a parent, I tell my kids to be healthy and not to eat candy. But eventually, I need for them to choose for themselves to be healthy. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. Okay. Another thing to describe this question, when Rebbe says, what is the proper path for man to choose for him or herself? And then he says, whatever brings beauty to the person that does it and makes beautiful around them. So most of the commentaries explain this to mean money, physical money. If I am asked, or if you're asked, what is better, to live a life as a religious Jew with money and wealth, or to be destitute? So here the commentaries are saying it's better to have money. Whatever brings beauty to the person and to their surrounding. Just saying that's how it's done. Because hopefully with the more wealth, you have less obstacles. It should be easier to do Shabbat, easier to buy the matzah and the Hanukkah candles and have the Friday night dinner with a little bit more Benjamins in the bank account. What's interesting is we find that some people do a little bit better when they're oppressed, like Jews when they're in Russia or in the shtetl. Somehow they manage to live more of a religious life there than maybe through the assimilation in America. But either way, the point is, whatever brings beauty to you and beauty around you, that is the better pathway to have a relationship with God. Just a quick story. When I was a tour guide in Kfar Chabad, which is a village outside of Tel Aviv, in the year 2001, 2002, 2003, it was an all Hasidic village, a few thousand people, black hats, tzitzis over their coats. And one of the guys' name was Yassel Rifkin. And this Yassel Rifkin, besides having the Hasidic garb, he also drove a tractor. And he was a dairy farmer. And literally, he had knee-high boots full of mud. And I'm giving the tours to on these charter buses in Kfar Chabad, all these visitors staying in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, and I'm taking them through Kfar Chabad. And one day, this guy, Yassel Rifkin, asks me in English, in Yiddish, why are you showing people my farm? So I said, that's kind of cool to have a Hasidic village and to see a Hasidic rabbi with a white beard on a tractor with mud on his boots. It's kind of cool. You don't see this every day in California. So he says, if you don't mind, share with your group that I many times wanted to close down my farm because today already in Israel, you have commercial farms and I only have maybe 70 cows and I'm not really making much money. And I asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe many, many times, I want to close my farm down because I'm not making money. I'm barely making money. And also as a religious person, there's extra cost involved because if your cow is sick, you got to give it medicine. And if it's on Shabbat, you can't take it to maybe a doctor or a vet. You have to wait till Sunday and you're losing money every day. Your animal, there's a lot of tricky halachot there. So he asked the Rebbe many, many times. And the Rebbe said, no. So this whole life, this guy lived as a farmer in poverty. And he says, I'm very thankful. I said, why are you thankful? He says, because every single night I pray, I really, really pray that God should give me blessing and God should give me parnasah and livelihood. And I probably would not be praying every night so fervently if I didn't have this dairy farm. So for this guy, he felt he had a strong relationship with God as a dairy farm owner. You know, most people living in Beverlywood or in Hancock Park, I don't think they would be happy with that arrangement, but that was his arrangement. In any case, Rebbe had our arrangement and he said to beautify yourself and your surroundings. So that's how we do it. Okay. Now, if we're saying, give me a second, L'chaim. If we're saying the ultimate is not to be indoctrinated, we don't live in a cult. Religion, our religion is not God driven a cult, but we're choosing after our education and we're choosing, and that is the ultimate path. So then a person will naturally come to a simple conclusion. The simple mitzvah is like giving a dollar bill to a homeless guy, who cares? Or putting 2 nickels in a pushka, who cares? These are easy mitzvot. But Shabbat or cheeseburgers, that's a big mitzvah. or a person will start to rationale to themselves what's considered an important mitzvah, what's not so important. In 2023, some people think that particular mitzvot are not so relevant today. They think it's abnormal to have the laws of yichud, of a man and woman not being in the same room. Seems archaic. So if we start to think and believe our own brains because we're choosing the path of Judaism, so it's a slippery slope, because if everything's based on our education and what we choose we find best, then we may disregard certain mitzvot that we think are not relevant or applicable today. So that's why Rebbe continues immediately after this quote, that statement, and right away, what does he say, Mark? He says, be as careful with a minor mitzvah as with a major one. That's why he says it right away. It's a follow-up to the previous statement. Make sense? For you do not know the reward for the mitzvot. And that's why the only two mitzvot, Sylvia, in all the Torah, the only two rewards mentioned in the entire Torah, out of 630 commandments, only twice does God go out of his way and he states, if you do this mitzvah, you will get a reward. Only twice in the whole Bible. What are those two mitzvot? Okay, I'll take you out of your misery. One is to honor thy parents. If you honor thy parents, God will grant you long life. It's really in there. And we say it in the Shema, in the Bahayim Shemaya. And the other one is Shiluach HaKan, sending the mother bird away before you take the chick from the nest. So even though sending away the mother bird from the nest before I take the chick, it's a 4-second mitzvah. Again, I'm not in this business of in a birdhouse, but people that were, it's a simple 4-second mitzvah. Take away the mother bird and then take the chick, the baby bird, which is a very simple, easy mitzvah. And honoring thy parents is a lifelong mitzvah. So here you have the two extremes of a very easy mitzvah and a very difficult or a very long mitzvah, one that does not end until you reach 120 years old. So here God is equating the easy mitzvah and the difficult mitzvah. And that's what Rebbe is saying. Do not judge the mitzvot by rewards. Do not judge a mitzvah if you think it's easy, if you think it's difficult. Don't do it. Why didn't Rebbe say, don't judge a sin, an easy sin and a difficult sin? Because we don't know the consequences of the sin. If I eat a cheeseburger, what happens to me? He does not say that. He just does it in the positive. Don't judge favorably or unfavorably particular mitzvot based on their reward. But on the sins, he does not say. And the answer is because we actually know the consequences for all the sins. Maimonides lists them all out. You have stoning, you have strangulation, you have particular karbanot, sacrifices that you have to bring. I don't mean today, but I'm talking about during the times of the temple. So that's why Rebbe, all he did was he stated, be careful with a minor mitzvah, with a major one, for you do not know the reward for the mitzvah, because we really don't know the reward for the mitzvah besides those two that I mentioned before. Okay, now let's do this. Reflect upon the three things and you will not come to sin. Know what is above you, an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and all your deeds are recorded in a book. So, have you ever heard of Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa? Anyone heard of thought, speech, and action? Thought, speech, and action. Everything and anything I do will stem either from thought, speech, or action. Or it can be sometimes both, right? I'm using my thought when I'm also speaking, but sometimes I'm just using my thought, not necessarily my speaking. I'm thinking about somebody. If I'm speaking, yeah, I'm probably using my thought as well. But sometimes you're using your thought and your speech and you're not doing action. Or sometimes you're doing action, but you're not using speech. Everything has to come from one or two or maybe three. It has to be, it's stemming from one of these three things: thought, speech, and action. So an eye that sees is referring to God in heaven, the eye that sees my thought. I should know what is above me. What is above me? A God that sees my thought. God also has an ear that hears my speech. And he records my actions, right? That's what he would say over there. And all your deeds are being recorded in your book. So that is thought, speech, and action. Now, it's interesting is in the English, it says know what is above you. But in the Hebrew, it has something a little interesting. Da ma la maila mimach. It says, it doesn't say know what's above you. It says know what's from you. Mimach in the Hebrew means from you. Know what is above from you. So it's interesting is that in many synagogues today, I noticed that on the parochet, the covering of the ark, it has like, these one-liners like ani l'dodi v'dodi li. So many synagogues have da ma la maila mimach. Know what is above you. Have reverence for God above. What's interesting that in the Hebrew it says, know what is above mimach, from you. So how do we explain this? So here, once again, we have a lot of commentary. And what this means is know what is above is from you. Your relationship, your reverence to God above, your admiration towards God above, your love towards God above, your fear towards God above is mimach, is from you. It's only going to be based from you. God's higher reality exists whether you agree with it or not. It existed before you were born. But for you to know what is above, mimach will only be from you. Well, that reality is an output, is a result, mimach, from you, from how you perceive that reality, from how you have a relationship with God, from your meditation, from your prayer. That's why it says mimach. Give me a second. Another very interesting thing is it says, know what is above you is you can change what is above from your acts. Know that what is above the higher cosmos, the constellations, will I have a good day, a good mazal, a good bashert, all these higher signs and zodiacs happening above, mimach can be altered or changed, mimach, from you, which means you have the power to actually change that higher reality, which is a very deep concept. So what I said first is know what is above from you is the more you know, the more you meditate, then you'll be able to appreciate that higher reality. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe says you actually can change the above based on your actions, based on your speech, based on your thoughts and things like that. I actually really like that one. Okay, give me one more minute. Another interesting story about the easy mitzvot versus the difficult mitzvot. There was a person that was in prison, and he was told, it's just more of a parable, but it's a story that could have happened. He was in prison, and the warden told him that you're going to get one day off. He told this Jew, you're going to get one day off this year. You decide which day you want to take off. So the prisoner sent a letter to his rabbi, and he said, should I take off Passover or should I take off Yom Kippur? Passover, I can eat the matzahs at home with my family. And Yom Kippur, I can be in temple in Yom Kippur. Rabbi, which day should I take off from prison? And the rabbi wrote him back, you should take off the first moment you're able to be released from prison. The first day you can be released, that's the day you should take off. Why? The rabbi quoted what we just learned, because we cannot ascertain and judge a minor mitzvah to a great mitzvah. Maybe you coming out today and even spending 10 minutes praying, or spending 10 minutes being nice to somebody, or studying Torah with yourself, and maybe is even greater than eating matzah on Passover, or being in a temple on Yom Kippur. So that's consistent with that concept with that Mishnah. Okay. And lastly, about this concept is a car, a vehicle, that's a good car, a good vehicle. If it's missing one thing, let's say it's missing brakes, we don't say it's a fantastic car, but it just doesn't have brakes. Rather, we would say it's a vehicle that doesn't work right now. It has to go to the shop. Or it's an amazing $100,000 car, but no transmission. It's a car that doesn't work. So same thing with mitzvahs. There are 613 commandments. We cannot tell ourselves, I'm good with 600. I mean, look, as long as you're striving to go in the right direction, that's all we care about. But the idea of saying, I'm perfect, even though I only do 600, it's like me having everything's working wonderfully besides, let's say, my heart. It's an imperfect human. It doesn't work. So that's that. Okay, let's go now to Mishnah 2. Okay. Mark, are you able to read Mishnah 2? You can unmute yourself first, which says Rabbi Gamliel, son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Huda Hanasi, would say, beautiful is the study of Torah with the way of the world, for the toil of them both causes sin to be forgotten. Ultimately, all Torah study that is not accompanied with work is destined to cease and to cause sin. Those who work for the community should do so for the sake of heaven, and for then merit of their ancestors shall aid them, and their righteousness shall endure forever. And you say, God, I shall credit you with a great reward, as if you have achieved it.
Okay, so what does this mean? First of all, this guy, Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the first Mishnah that we just studied was Rabbi Yehuda, the priest, right? That we said. So this is the son. So Mishnah 2 is the son. So what is he saying? He's saying that Torah study has to be with work. What does work mean? Work means 6 days a day, 6 days a week, we work. So this guy, Rabbi Gamliel, is saying that we have to do Torah study and we have to work, because both of them, the Torah study and being a working person, will allow us to avoid sin. We're not going to be tied up with sinning. We're going to be tied up with working and tied up with doing Torah. So that's what this guy, Rabbi Gamliel, is saying in Mishnah 2. And what he's saying here is, don't think that Torah and working 9 to 5 is inconsistent, that either I got to study Torah or I got to work. No, there must be a synthesis, a harmony between working and between studying Torah. Another thing is, he says over there, what you just read, is you have to, all who serve the community should do it for the sake of heaven. So the word tzibor is community in Hebrew. In the Hebrew side, it said tzibor, which is Hebrew for community. Tzibor is tzaddik, beis is benoni, and reish is rasha. Tzaddik, beis, reish is tzibor, is a community. You can't just work for tzaddikim. You can't just work for the wicked people. You have to work for the community at large. At tzibor, community is a tzaddik, a benoni, and a rasha. Okay, and there's more to say, but let's continue. Mishnah 3. Sylvia, if you want to unmute yourself and read 3 and 4, be my guest, girl. Mishnah 3.
I am on the phone and it's pretty hard for me to see.
No problem. I'll do it. I will do it. No problem.
Thank you. Sorry.
I will do it. No problem. My English text is a little different than yours, but it's the same thing. Be wary of those in power, for they befriend a person only for their benefit. They seem to be friends when it is to their advantage, but they do not stand by man in his hour of need. So typically what this means is don't rush to rub shoulders, not just with celebrities, but people with power. Be wary of those in power. Anyone sitting in Congress or senators or even presidents, basically they're all rushing to get your vote. So it's telling us very clearly, don't rub shoulders with people in power. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't interact with them, but don't rely on them. There's nothing wrong with being nicey to a senator, What I mean is don't rely on them because they're only there for themselves, not for you. The moment these politicians are out of power, they will lose your number very, very, very quickly. There's a guy, I don't like speaking politics, but it's a small class over here, who called me up from New York, and he wants to get my opinion about helping Donald Trump right now in New York with all the legal troubles that he's in. Now, I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not even going down that pathway. But this is a guy who I like. And I told him, I said, even if Trump is a tzaddik, I said, but he just wants your vote. He just wants you. I mean, you're not his friend. You don't know him. He doesn't know you. If you like him because you felt he was good for the people in Israel, that's one thing. But right now, to really bend over backwards because he is in power and he's going to let you into his room and he's going to let you into Mar-a-Lago, I just said, I don't see it. I don't think you owe him that. Okay, I don't know if my opinion is correct or not, but that's just my take. But in any case, this mission is making it very clear. Don't basically, I'll just use these words. Don't befriend, be wary of those in power, for they befriend a person only for their benefit. I'm just using the Mishnah's words. For they befriend a person only for their benefit. So what are you gaining by having a real relationship with these people? We know where they stand with us, so we should also know where we stand with them. That's all. That's how I'll see it. They do not stand by a man in his hour of need. I mean, just look at what former presidents have done to former cabinet members of theirs when they were done, when they don't need them anymore. Bye-bye. So that's that. Now, what's interesting is there's another twist to this Mishnah, which is be wary of those in power does not refer to politicians. Be wary of those in power refers to my animal soul. My animal soul is very, very strong. The animal soul in me is the voice in me telling me to do wrong things, to be lazy, to be angry, not to go to work today, to sin, not to go to temple. I'd rather stay home. Everyone has their own animal soul, which is zetzing them. It's always that voice in them, always telling them what to do or what not to do. And we know it's not the divine soul. It's the animal soul in them trying to get dominion and control over that person. So many times right after we sin, we say, gosh, I can't believe it. I just fell. What do you mean you fell? You fell to that voice, to the Satan in you, to the animal soul in you. So be wary of those in power. Be wary of this animal soul because they befriend a person and they're making nicey with me only for their benefit. When the animal soul tells me, stay home and don't go to temple because I can be a better person if I get more rest. So just this Saturday, I'll miss temple. Just this Yom Kippur, I won't go to shul. And I'll get more rest and I'll be a better person and I'll be able to be a better father, right? The animal soul rationalizes it. It has to figure out what to do. The animal soul doesn't tell me, Mendel Schwartz, don't keep Shabbat and get in a car and go to a Laker game because the animal soul is smart. It's very cunning. It knows I'm not going to listen to such a thing. The animal soul is much smarter than that. The animal soul knows where to get Mendel. And the animal soul will say, don't go to temple today. Don't go for Shabbat. You'll be a better father. You'll be more rested. When your kid come home from temple, you'll be a better. That's what the animal soul. So be wary of those in power. For they befriend a person only for their benefit. They're befriending me and telling me, look, you'll be better. They're befriending me only for their benefit, the benefit of falling, the benefit of sinning, the benefit of not going to temple. And Mark has his animal soul that tries to get control over him. And Sylvia, you have yours and everybody else. Okay, last one. He used to say, we're still with Rabbi Gamliel. Make his will like your will so that he, capital H, so that he may make your will as his will. Again, make his will like your, whatever God wants, that's what you should do. So make his will like your will. Whatever he wants, that's what you should want. so that he may make your will as his will. So that he, God, will basically make in me that everything that I should do is basically what he wants me to do. And then it says, nullify your will before his will. Even though I want to have a cheeseburger, I should nullify my will of having a cheeseburger, so that he may nullify the will of others before your will. So that he, God, will nullify other people's will towards my will. So people will be nice to me and good to me. Basically, what comes around goes around. Now, generally speaking, when people are struggling in a particular area, there's two approaches. Either you can go away from your bad ways, or you can just focus on doing good and forget about your bad ways. I'm trying to give an example. Let me think of an example. A person who is addicted to watching 4 hours of politics every night. And now I make a resolution, no more politics. So there's two ways how to do this. Either I can remove the television from my house, or I can keep the television, but just start in those 4 hours that I used to watch television, I should start studying Torah, or I should start to watch proper documentaries, or I should spend time with my friends instead, or go out to the games, or go out to the park, or things like that. So one is negate. I'm negating something. I'm removing the television, or I can do something positive, like going out to the games, or going out to the park, or spending more time with my spouse and things like that. So in Hebrew, we call this sur meira, go away from the bad, or remove the bad, and aseh tov, do good. So here we have in this Mishnah 4, two clauses. One is make your will like his will, and two is nullify your will for his will. So one is focusing on the positive, and one is focusing on the negative. Interestingly, that he puts the positive first here. Make your will like his will, and then secondly, he does sur meira. So in Hasidic approach as well, when a person is repenting or a person wants to do good with their life, we're always asked, focus less on the negative. Don't worry about the television. Just do good. Just do a mitzvah. Just spend quality time with your family. Understand? So that's called sur meira v'aseh tov. We'll leave it at that because it's 8:15, and we'll continue next week on Tuesday. Any questions?